on greening condo and apartment buildings. So the first item I want to cover for the greening of condo and apartment buildings is just how to do this in a community of people. Obviously, you can't change things when they impact other people without getting consent. So really what you probably want to start with is finding out the interests of residents in your condo or apartment building. See if you can put together a green team or find a green leader. You also want to reach out to your building manager or owner to see if their interests back you up. You may want to talk to other apartment complexes or condos to find out what initiatives they were able to get going. There are a couple condo buildings in the Wilmette area that have a green leader or a green team. You can communicate your suggestions and update policies or procedures through posters or bulletin boards, just trying to get the word out, possibly emails. And if you're trying to start something new, and you might want to just do a trial or a pilot program, just because it might be easier to get approval just as a trial. The next, I guess I'll segue into just more policies. So if I know a lot of buildings in Wilmette are along Sheridan Road have many units and they have a party room. So if you're going to have events or parties at your condo, if you can make it a low waste or a zero waste, it's good to pre-plan ahead of time to try to see if you can reduce the carbon footprint. Planning ahead for such items as maybe purchasing reusable plates, silverware, glasses, if that's possible, so there's not so much waste. You could have people bring their own water bottles, or if that's just not an option for storage or whatever else, you could get compostable, perhaps, if you're willing to do composting. You can do signage at these events so that people understand that you're trying to go low waste or zero waste. That's what this little poster on the left is trying to convey. And then if you do have bins, it's always smart to put them all together. So if you have recycling, make sure it's right next to a garbage bin. And then if you can possibly compost, I would group that there as well. Have everything clearly identified so that people can easily understand where to put things. And I will, get further into the composting and recycling further in the presentation. Go Green Wilmette has also put together a zero waste event guide. You can find that on our website. I will also, I can email that out with the follow-up for the presentation. But it just kind of gives you tips on where to buy stuff if you're going to use compostables, just recycling information. So it's a great resource. As far as the exterior goes, I'll start there. So for landscaping, I would imagine most condos or apartment buildings have a service that provides landscaping and yard maintenance. So if you could, talk to your board or your other members and see if you can review the policies and practices and make sure you're using non-toxic methods. Possibly if you're going to do any new landscaping, or there's money in the budget to change some landscaping on the site, you could introduce native plants, which require less water and fertilizers. You could also look for, well, I think I already discussed the non-toxic fertilizers. Another big item is to see if you can get your service provider to use electric powered equipment for leaf blowers, mowers, edgers. Not only do electric garden equipment release pollutants like carbon monoxide and nitrogen oxide, but they're quite loud. So electric is much quieter, so there's less noise pollution. And also to note that the Village of Wilmette actually prohibits the use of gas-powered leaf blowers between May 15th and September 30th. You could also have the lawn company come out less and ask them to cut the grass higher. And you could use a mulching mower to get the clippings on your lawn so that it provides nutrients back into your lawn and less waste. So these really pertain to even if you're a single family house, or even your own practices if you don't have a service. I think another big item, especially probably for larger condo buildings, is light pollution. So if you can follow the policy of the dark sky lighting, which really its goal is to decrease light pollution. So the advantages of that would be, we can see more stars again, that the sky is actually dark again at night. Many species, especially humans, are dependent on natural body cycles called circadian rhythms, and the production of melatonin, which this cycle is based off of light and dark. So it lets people sleep better and get on better schedule, as well as the animals. Obviously cuts down on energy usage if you are reducing lighting. And I know a lot of people think that the more light, the better as far as wayfinding or security, but actually too much light at the wrong angle can cause glare and you actually loss of contrast. So you can sometimes get blind temporary or cause safe on driving conditions. And actually for security, it's worse because you can't see what's hiding behind the light. So kind of the principles here are, you want to keep all the light that's on your property or coming from a fixture on your property. And that can start with shielding it. So you want to get like they're referred to as a full cutoff light fixture. You can see that on the second cone. Color temperature matters a lot as well, just for our cycles, our body cycles. So a much more warm light. And if we can lower the intensity, again, that reduces glare. And perhaps the light doesn't need to be on all the time. So it could be on a timer, which also would, reduce energy usage. So moving into the building, recycling. So not single family houses within Wilmette do get recycling service by the city or the village. The village does not require multifamily buildings to recycle. It's optional. Therefore, it's in the hands of the building owners and the condo owners of the board. So if you don't have recycling, it would be good to talk to other residents in the building, your building management, to see what you can do to get recycling in your building. The same advanced disposal that provides recycling also, garbage also provides recycling. And if you do have recycling currently, I know that a lot of people have expressed problems with recycling. People don't know what to recycle or just the ease of recycling, which can be problematic. I'll get into that as far as where to locate recycling further in the presentation. But as far as to what to recycle, signage can be very helpful. On the right here, I have the what's recyclable here through our service provider. And there's also a webinar that we did, Recycling Demystified, that really helps go through each item and why or why not maybe it could be recycled. And at the building on Sheraton 1440, Junia Hedberg is a very, I'll call her a green leader of her building. She has given information out to her tenants or her condo owners, and she just says, when in doubt, throw it out. And that's probably the best way if you're not sure it can be recycled, because otherwise it contaminates the recycling. And also a big item that I know is a problem too is that most tenants, I think, want to walk their recycling down in a plastic bag, but plastic bags cause problems in recycling. So that definitely needs to be addressed and made known to tenants. And I have some suggestions on that further down the line. Also, if you are purchasing any products for common spaces, offices, or your own units, see if you can get a high recycled content in the paper products. So to the location of the bins. So on the right-hand side, this is from 1500 Sheridan Road. And the issue is in their building, I can't remember how many stories, maybe 10 stories. It's the garbage is done through the chute, and there was never any room allocated for recycling when this building was built. So Jan, who is a resident of this condo building, has taken upon herself to get recycling incorporated. And so they have, these are these small bins you see on the right hand side. They're actually located on the stairwells. So they are actually emptied daily into the recycling dumpster by staff. So again, this is just a policy that needs to be organized and approved through the management. On the left is a smaller condo building, but again, they still use the garbage chute. You can see on the right-hand corner, it goes into the dumpster, and then they have the recycle bin. So you still need to, well, in this instance, you actually need to walk your recycling down to the first floor. So a little bit of inconvenience, perhaps, for tenants, but obviously very helpful for the environment, and you know, maybe there's some other ways that they can be addressed that would help ease the, you know, how easy it is to recycle in buildings. So it's just something that needs to be dealt with on a building per building basis. One second. There we go. So recycling costs. So I know another tough sell sometimes for sustainable issues is, will it cost more? So it really depends on the size of your building and how many bins of garbage you do typically have right now. Actually, recycling is less per bin, but I guess if you only fill one bin of garbage a week, you're obviously going to have to add another bin for recycling. But you know, it's not a huge cost to incur. Also, if you add composting to your building, you'll also reduce your garbage amount further, and we will get into that as well. So composting. So I imagine most people think that composting would be hard in a multi-tenant building. Actually, it's not. It seems to be pretty very similar to in a single family house here in Wilmette. The only difference is that you have to hire your own service provider for composting. In the Village of Wilmette, single family houses have the option to do curbside composting. So why compost? This is probably just as important as recycling, maybe if not more, because I feel like more stuff can go into the compost. Composting requires very little work and resource. It reduces landfill waste and associated costs. It enriches soil, helping retain moisture and suppresses plant diseases. It reduces the need for chemical fertilizers, encourages the production of beneficial bacteria to create humus, and it also reduces methane emissions from landfills and lowers your carbon footprint. So I do think it's always amazing when you have all these scraps that you can see in this picture, and you throw it in the compost bin, and you know, depending on how well your compost works, months later you have this compost that looks like soil. So in a multi-tenant building, you obviously will have a service. You won't be putting this in your backyard, but it's great to be able to dispose of your food waste in this way, and it's not sitting in your garbage in your unit either. And for most commercial composting, you can throw in whatever was once living, but you should check with whoever you do get a provider with. The Village of Wilmette now will take anything that was once living. So now it will take bones and meats where it wouldn't before. But again, you just need to check whoever you get a service with. As far as what you would need to add to your own unit to compost, and this would go for a single family house as well, you need to have some type of container in your kitchen to throw the scraps in. The image right here are 2 compost buckets. I have one similar to one of these in my house. Just keep it under the kitchen sink. You could just use a different container, maybe an old coffee container, and you just throw all your scraps in there. And then maybe once a day, depending on how many scraps you have, how many people are in your household, you just need to empty it into the compost. And I'll get into where that goes in a minute. Optional things to purchase are liners for your cans. You don't need to wash it out, but again, that's just another resource, and they don't decompose very well in commercial composting even, so it's recommended not to have them. However, I do know that people still use them. The sink strainer you see in the right-hand corner is great for catching any food before it goes in the drain, and you can just empty that into the compost. At 1440 Sheridan, I think it's a 44 unit building. They got rid of all of their disposals because it was clogging their pipes and causing problems and getting costly. And now they compost instead, and they use the strainer just to keep all the food from going down the drains. So now to composting services. So there are a couple in the area. I'm most familiar with Collective Resource. I know they do a lot of work here in Wilmette. Both 1500 Sheridan and 1440 Sheridan use Collective Resource. They also do events. So if you have parties, they can just, it can be a one-time thing. But basically you would just determine, I guess, to start to get a contract, you would determine how many people want to compost in the building. You will talk to the provider. They will help you gauge how often and what size bin. So just for an example, at 1500 Sheridan, there are 4 families with 2 individual in each family. They share 2 5-gallon compost buckets. So those are those orange and yellow ones in the picture. They're collected every 2 weeks, and the fee is $8 per bucket. So really it's just $1 per person a week to compost. And again, that's reducing your garbage amount. So potentially you could reduce some of your service on that end. Now you also need to locate a communal space to put the compost bucket. So you'll have your container in your unit, which you're going to need to empty out, like I said, perhaps daily, maybe every other day, depending on the usage, into this communal bin. So at 1440 Sheridan in Wilmette, they have theirs in their parking garage. And they just had to give access to community resource or collective resource, excuse me, to have access to their parking garage. You might have to locate it in the alley for other units. I would highly recommend it, say compost on it, so that other items are not placed in the bin. And then the right-hand photo is the bins, the 5-gallon buckets that 1500 Sheridan uses. As you can see, a lot more people compost at the 1440 Sheridan. And so they need a much larger bin. So now I'm going to move into trying to reduce your water usage. Of course, there's many things you can do just from, you know, lifestyle without having to change anything out in your house. Obviously, you can just be mindful of turning off the water when you're brushing your teeth, only doing full loads of laundry or the dishwasher, monitoring your length of your showers. But with probably a bigger item is probably the biggest thing would be replacing old toilets if you have any. So this could be tricky, I suppose, if you are a renter, but perhaps the building owner would want to replace these since they typically, I believe, supply the water or pay for the water bills. So older toilets pre-1980, if you replace those with a low flow toilet, 1.2 gallons per flush, you would save 27,000 gallons of water a year and $230. So really you could purchase a new toilet in 1 year for that and cost savings, and you'll be saving a lot of water. Newer toilets from 1980 to 94, they usually flush at 3.5 gallons. You could save 16,000 gallons of water or $100, excuse me, 140 per year if you replaced that with a low flow. Again, you could probably purchase a toilet for that. I believe Home Depot has a toilet, the Niagara, for 130 or something. Toilets are generally pretty easy to replace. You obviously could do it on your own, but there's just not a lot of cost involved in it, but a lot of savings. Another very easy low-hanging fruit would be to put aerators on your faucets and your shower heads. Basically what they do is they screw onto your faucet and basically dilute the water stream with air, so you use less water. For the shower, you have to unscrew that shower head and screw it in, and then put the shower head back on. Or you could replace the shower head or the faucet with a low flow faucet, and that would save a lot of water. Again, I think these are something you could do as a tenant because it's very cheap, as well as if it's an apartment building or if you own, a condo. Again, fairly easy. Replace old washing machines. Make sure it's Energy Star certified. Again, you could save possibly 2,000 gallons of water a year. And then for energy reduction, again, some just lifestyle habits. Just make sure you're turning lights off you're not using, unplug things that don't need to be plugged in. But as far as replacing things, replace all your incandescent and CFL lights with LED light fixtures. They are easily found at any home repair store, Home Depot, Lowe's. They use 75% less energy. They last 25 times longer than incandescent. They also do not give off heat, so that is a benefit in the summer. You do have to be a little careful about if you have dimmer switches on your light fixtures. You want to make sure the dimmer is capable of dimming LEDs. You could replace all your appliances with Energy Star appliances, which are much more efficient. And again, all these things I think the light fixtures could be done if you were a tenant in the apartment building. There's not much investment for you. The appliances, obviously, you'd want to only do if you're in a condo, or maybe the building owner wants you to do that, just to reduce possibly if he covers the electrical or she covers the electrical, or as a benefit to try to, oops, sorry. To try to market their apartment as energy efficient. Other lifestyle items, keep your temperature set points reasonable. Set your water heater temperature no higher than 120. DOE, which is the Department of Energy, recommends keeping your thermostat at 68 degrees Fahrenheit in the winter and 78 degrees Fahrenheit in the summer. Summer one might be a little hot. It might take it down a little bit, and make sure that your humidity is getting out of your air as well. But I guess the point is, if you can just push them a couple degrees either way, you will be saving a lot of energy. Install a programmable thermostat. These things are great. You can program them for when you're going to be away. If you forgot to turn it off, you can do it with your phone. And I think this, again, is something you could put in as a tenant. It's not a huge cost. There's a lot of times rebates available for them. As far as replacing all your heating and cooling system, I think that could be a little complicated within a multi-tenant building. I probably would recommend in most cases that you consult with an engineer. Perhaps if you're in a smaller townhome or something, or apartment building, they might have might have your own furnace, and maybe that could be easily replaced. But just look at all your appliances, and if you own and you can replace, it's ideal. You'll see a lot of energy savings. And further energy savings would be replacing windows. I do recommend consulting with an architect to replace windows. And actually, I just realized that I never introduced myself. So I actually am an architect. My name is Debbie Sad, and I am a Wilmette resident and a Wilmette Go Green Wilmette board member. I have focused on sustainable design. So this is kind of in my wheelhouse here. So again, back to replacing windows. I think, if you have older windows, single pane windows, there is huge energy savings to be had by replacing windows. But I do feel like you need to be careful. They can be expensive, and I think you want to pick out the right ones. You definitely want to get low E, double pane. The low E is like a coating that's put on the panes of glass, and they block out infrared and UV, which is great for your furniture and carpets. They allow visible light in, and then they, to varying degrees, they block out solar heat gain, so the radiant heat coming from the sun. So there's many different levels and types of low E where you put the coatings, and it really depends on the climate as well as your orientation your window is facing, as well if there's any shading. This is where I feel like an architect could probably be much helpful on this aspect. And you also want to make sure the frames have thermal breaks in them, so they're not transmitting heat as well. And you also need to make sure the installation of them is proper, because if they're not flashed properly, you could cause leakage. You also want to make sure they are sealed properly on the edges when they're installed, so you don't have air leakage. Otherwise, all will be lost on your energy efficiency. But I brought this one out in particular as far as dealing with the envelope, because at 1625 Sheridan Road, they did replace all the windows with low E thermal windows for both their residences, and there's businesses on the first floor. I don't have a whole lot of information on this, but I do know that both the businesses and the residents both noted reduced drafts in the winter. And they also, for the a particular business that faced west, so the worst kind of heat gain through windows, and it also faced an asphalt parking lot, which the black asphalt will reflect the heat back into the space. So by just replacing the windows with a low E coating, they were able to save 25 to 50% of their electrical costs during the air conditioning months. So I feel like there's much to be gained from thermal comfort as well as energy savings. Other items along the exterior wall of your house or condo, excuse me, or multi-tenant building. I feel like, you know, if you are an owner or you're even just an apartment, you know, a tenant, I think, you know, the investment in weather stripping and caulking around your windows is very minimal. It reduces air leakage, which is a huge energy savings as well as a comfort issue. So you want to weather strip wherever, you know, doors opening, windows, you know, double hung windows, casement windows usually are okay. And then you want to caulk around anytime a like drywall meets a trim. The drywall acts as an air barrier, and so you just want to caulk between the different materials. So the, you know, the wood trim around the windows and the wood baseboard, perhaps the ceiling, the crown molding, that minimizes any type of air leakage. Oh wait, I forgot one aspect. So another item I would also consult with an architect is in your envelope, if you're going to add insulation. Now, insulation is great, obviously, to add, but if it is added improperly, what I'm trying to show with this diagram, which you don't really need to read or anything, it's just showing that there is a lot of science involved in figuring out what type of insulation would be appropriate. If you put the wrong type of insulation in, it could not allow the building envelope to breathe, basically, so that it won't dry out and you'll probably have moisture problems. Or if you put insulation in the wrong spot, when air moves through it, and it will, even no matter how well we air seal, and the vapor goes through it, the dew point might hit somewhere in the wall, which will cause water issues in the wall, or moisture issues in the wall. So I just recommend that you consult with an architect before doing insulation, but I do recommend it if you have a under insulated or maybe a non-insulated wall, depending on how old your building is. And then I want to go into electric vehicle charging. I think this is another great one for multi-tenant buildings, because you could make use of, you know, one space or a couple spaces depending on the need or the want from building owners. You know, you could provide a communal parking area like shown in this picture here. It really depends on what you're building, how it's set up. Perhaps, you know, if you have your own dedicated space and there aren't any open spaces allowed or open to install these pedestal or communal, I should say, car charging, then you could do, you know, individual ones. And as far as the types and the costs of installing a electric car charger, so there are 3 levels. The first level is really cheap. If you have a car, it is the plug that came with your car, and it just can plug into a standard 120 volt outlet. So super easy to you know, put up pretty much anywhere. There's an outlet. The problem is it, you know, takes 20 hours to charge your car, and you'll get 124 miles out of that approximately. The level 2 is probably what's typically done. This, you need to purchase a separate charger. You need to also have an outlet that's 240 volts, but it will charge your car 3 to 7 times faster than the level 1, depending on the type of car and charger you have. And the level 3 is really just for commercial installation, so it really doesn't apply to residential. the breakdown of potential work. So you may need to upgrade your electrical service if your panel is maxed out. You also need to install conduit to the location of the charger if you're going to do the level 2. And as far as potential costs, the permit from the Village of Wilmette ranges from $120 to $240. The price of a level 2 charger ranges from $400 to $700, with the Tesla starting at $500. And then our best guess at installation costs would be $350 to $1,200. You will need to get a licensed electrician out for the level 2 charger. And there are a couple condos that do have electric chargers at their buildings. So these are all from 1500 Sheridan Road. They have 4 chargers there. They're each owned and designated and placed in a designated parking spot for the specific condo owner. They are also connected to a meter, which allows the building to bill the owner monthly. The meters did cost $50 to install. So going back to the, if it is a communal space, then obviously there's, that'll have to be covered by all tenants. So obviously that'll have to get approved by the board, or if it's an apartment building, perhaps the owner wants to offer that for the tenants. I would imagine most people think that if you have an apartment or if you're in a condo building, that solar panels and getting access to clean energy aren't really an option. But there is community solar. And how community solar works is a company, in this case, Clearway Community Solar, builds solar panel farms in rural areas and feeds this power to the grid, replaces it, the polluted energy from burning fossil fuels, and provides this renewable energy on the grid. And if you sign up for this program, then you will still use the energy you would, or the electricity you would still always have received through your ComEd in Wilmette's case, but you get credit back from the solar farm for using their system. I'm not going to get into the details of it, but there are webinars which I'll get into on where you can look into more information on this. If you do receive a ComEd bill, then you are eligible to sign up. So in Wilmette, there's 2 companies that have partnered together, Trajectory Energy and Clearway Community Solar. And Northwestern University in Evanston has signed up for this, as well as 100+ residents here in Wilmette. So again, Clearway Community Solar is the entity that owns and operates the solar farms. If you do decide to sign up, if you sign up through their website and this link here that I have on the site, and we'll send to you through the email later, Go Green Wilmette gets acknowledged for the connection on that, just for trying to help promote them. And then Trajectory Energy Partners, their aspect in this is they're helping to for marketing and education and the application process. You can also sign up through their website. But yeah, I think it's a great program and allows for people to get clean energy. The next topic I would like to cover is indoor air quality. So whenever you're renovating your unit, this goes for your single family house as well, or anything within common areas, You should try to use low or non-toxic materials. Especially you want to avoid VOCs, so volatile organic compounds. They are harmful gases emitted by certain products or processes. They include a variety of chemicals that cause adverse health effects and negative impact on the environment. Exposure to them can cause both short-term and long-term health effects, irritation to the eyes, nose, and throat, damage to the liver, kidneys, and central nervous system, nausea, headaches, dizziness, loss of coordination. Formaldehyde is one of the probably the most prominent or most well-known VOC. So these come in, paints, adhesive, coatings, furniture. I'll get into it a little bit further, what to look for when you are purchasing things. But I also wanted to point out that, especially in a multi-tenant building, if you're renovating your space and you're using toxic products, that air is going to somehow manage to get into your neighbors' units in the common space. So, not only is it important for you, but for your neighbors to make sure you're using non-toxic materials. And also just wanted to point out that, if you smell like the fresh paint or the new car smell, I know a lot of people like that smell, but smelling that is not a good thing. It's really just you're smelling chemicals that are harmful to you. So here's where, when you're looking for paints, most brands, major brands offer a no VOC line at this point. I don't think the price is anything that expensive or additional because it is so widely used. Some items like stains and sealers or specialty coatings or adhesives you can't get a no VOC, but you can get a low VOC. So it's always good to look at labels and compare them. The green seal is a standard. They have a lot of standards, but the particular standard, the GS11, is one that covers all these items you see here: paints and coatings, stains and sealers, specialty coatings and adhesives. If a product you're buying, one of these products you're buying has the green seal, then it they're certifying that this is a low VOC or the lowest it could be without compromising performance. So it's always good to look for the green seal. And then, when you're purchasing furniture or cabinets or mattresses or, any of these big items that are, contain, let's say, MDF or plywood, they typically have formaldehyde in them. So you want to look for formaldehyde free, or sometimes it's worded no added formaldehyde, because there is some natural formaldehyde that you can't avoid. And there is Underwriters Laboratory, UL, has a certification process for furniture as well. It's called Green Guard. And so that they certify products. You'd see the logo on there that you see on the right. I know I've seen this at like Pottery Barn now and West Elm. So I think it is becoming much more widespread, and so you probably can search the web for products that are Green Guard certified. And then when you're cleaning your space, you don't want to introduce toxins as well. So a lot of cleaning products out there have a lot of toxins in them, like ammonia, chlorine, formaldehyde. So you just want to make sure you read the labels when you're cleaning carpets. Same thing applies. There typically is a non-toxic cleaner out there. You just need to do the research, or if you're having a service come in, same thing. There are some companies that use non-toxic cleaners. I would discuss with your building manager for common areas or your board, just to see if they can do a non-toxic products as well. Because again, anything used in that area is going to eventually come into your area. through the air. And examples of green cleaning products, baking soda, borax, white vinegar, lemon juice, hydrogen peroxide. So they're easy DIY cleaning products at home. And I think this wraps up my presentation for tonight. I am sure there are many other things I could go over for greening apartment buildings and condo buildings. I think a lot of things I went over also apply to single family homes. I guess what our hope was from this presentation to also feel out condo owners and those renting apartments in Wilmette to find out, do you need, help trying to initiate sustainable programs in your building? We're trying to find out the interest and to help facilitate, bringing these programs into your condo or apartment. Maybe connect you with other green teams and leaders that we have talked to within the area, and they could be helpful in how to, initiate these items. In 1 week, we will email out the link to the webinar on YouTube, as well as information, links and so forth that I referenced, and ask as well as, for people to reply back to us if they're interested in being a green leader in their building, or starting a green team or need some assistance. So thank you again for coming out. And there will be a Q&A now, and Maria Dabrowski will be handling that. So thank you again.
Great job, Debbie. That was wonderful. If you could just stop sharing your screen real quick. Beautiful. Excellent. Great. Hi, everyone. I'm Maria. Okay, Debbie. The first question is a sort of a two-parter. If someone's building is currently not doing very much, where should they start to get the biggest bang for their buck?
Well, it really probably depends on the individual buildings, but I feel like, there are obviously things that I went over that you could do as an individual within your unit. I would definitely start there. I think, just talking to people, I think is helpful. Again, it really depends for bang for your buck, it just depends on how old your building is, how, does it have newer appliances? Is it insulated well? New windows? So that's a kind of a hard question to answer, but I would try to just start with your own unit and try to green that as much as you can. Talk to your neighbors, and bring it up in board meetings. If recycling is not there, try to express the importance of it. So I think just be persistent, maybe not pushy, but have patience, because I think it does a lot of these things. People are busy, their lives are busy, and changing people's lifestyles sometimes are hard. So be patient and just try to lead by example.
Oh, that's a fantastic answer. So the next part of this question might have the same answer of it depends. But if cost is not an issue and you're looking at a building and a group is saying, where should we begin? Is there a place to start? Like, would windows be the place to start to look into reducing?
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, if money is no object, it really, again, depends on the building. But if it's an older building, yeah, the envelope, like if you're looking for energy savings, then the envelope would be of your building. So the exterior wall would be the biggest thing. You don't want to, doing solar panels or, connecting to solar. Well, if you're doing solar or community solar, perhaps not, because it's already built off site. But, the first thing is really to tighten up your building, because, you don't want to be wasting all this energy and all the the power you're getting from the solar panels if your building's not well insulated, airtight, and you have good windows. So fix the envelope first and then go for the add-ons like solar panels. And, if you can, electrifying your whole building is a great way to go. It's expensive. And given our energy costs, it is a little expensive to operate perhaps in the winter. But again, I would focus on your the envelopes, your exterior of your building first. Make sure that is well insulated, and maybe your appliances and your systems.
And I think what was so interesting about your talk is that you're not talking about just one form of sustainability. You're talking about reducing emissions, you're talking about reducing plastic, or thinking about how you dispose of your waste, you're thinking about like chemical pollutants as well. So I think what's cool is that you can kind of start where you have a lot of motion to begin. So if you have a group where they're all very interested in chemical pollutants, that can be your jump off point. I think that was what was pretty cool about your presentation. We have a question about auditing, like if doing a sort of building audit, and not like a formal one, but an informal one of how the building is performing on a variety of sustainability scales. Do you think that would be a helpful way to like begin doing actionable things?
Well, as it pertains to like your envelope, so again, the exterior wall, I do think an audit is very important, because I don't think you know how to improve it unless you know what you have. So understanding, what the insulation is, how a building, the envelope performs. So you could audit your all your appliances, see. I mean, I think a homeowner might be able to do that on their own, and just see what's available out there and how old it is and efficient. Usually you can pull up information online about that if you look up your appliances. But yeah, I think assessing where your current building or systems are is probably the first step.
And are there consultants that can also help with that?
Yes. Just trying to think off the top of my head. An engineer obviously could help with any of the mechanical systems. I cannot think of this company off the top of my head, but there are people that would come out and do energy audits. If that's, what wants to, if that's the item that wants to be audited.
And I think Collective Resource does compost or waste audits as well, that they can help a building figure out if that would be what kind of totes to get or whatever. Just, I know off the top of my head too, since I put you on the spot, I put myself on the spot too. That's something that they might be able to help with as well.
Right. I do know that, waste companies come out and do audits as well, but I don't think that the size of our buildings would,
Right.
I don't know that they're large enough to do that. It's obviously, I mean, if someone in a building is interested in doing that, they probably could do it on their own. I mean, you just have to really see how many garbage bins are used every day, if they're recycling at all. I think, it's a little bit of work, but probably easily done. Yeah.
We have a question. So a lot of times it is said that use what you have first, right? In the whole like sustainability movement, use what you have rather than going out and getting something new. But in this case, you presented some arguments where that might not be true, right? With like a toilet, for example, you might have a functioning toilet, but perhaps that purchase is warranted. Would you agree with that? That in some cases maybe that's not the thing to do, to just use
Right. It depends. Like if, obviously all the examples on the toilets that I gave, I mean, there's huge savings of water and energy involved in that. If your, refrigerator is, old, easily, if you have the money to replace it, right? I mean, sometimes the money might be an issue, but you're going to get savings. I'm not sure what the payback would be. It'd probably differ on each appliance, but yeah, I mean, it's hard to throw something in, into the garbage, but we're also at the same time you're wasting energy. So
Right. Trade-offs. Would you, besides toilets and the appliances that you talked about, are there any other big things where you would say new is better in this particular case?
Well, a water heater potentially,
Mm.
right? Like, I mean, any really appliances, anything that's really old and inefficient. I mean, technology's great, it's always improving, and there's something that's going to be so much more efficient. I mean, if it's something that's 5 years old, maybe, not, but
Right.
yeah.
Case by case basis. We have a question from the wonderful Trudy. Trudy asked or said, I would like to replace a full metal door with styrofoam insert with a door with a glass window and adjustable blind. Will I lose or gain environmentally? And then she noted that the door goes from the condo unit to the rooftop space over the townhouse next door.
Okay, so she has an existing insulated door, correct?
A full metal door with a styrofoam insert.
Yeah. Okay, well, so insulation is obviously a better insulator than glass, but I think that sometimes quality of life comes into play too. I think it's just a holistic. You have to look at things holistically. So I think that if you want light to come in, it depends on which way the door faces. Right? I think I would go for it. You can get the solid portion of the door insulated. So.
That's true. That's true. If people were to embark on sort of, if they have condos or are doing something on their own and they want to do it by themselves, do you have idea, like how should they begin a project? Should they go to websites? Should they go to a hardware store or a Home Depot sort of store? How can people get started? I think sometimes people are really excited to do projects. Personally, I know I get excited about DIY projects, but then I don't know where to begin. Do you have any tips for people on getting started?
As far as finding sustainable products,
Anything kind of with any of these bigger projects that people could conceivably undertake on their own, where should they begin, or where, how to start?
well, I guess it depends on what we're talking about. I mean, some things I think are, easily done, painting, right? But I don't know if what type of projects these might be. Because larger projects, obviously, you perhaps would need to
Right.
hire an architect or structural engineer, depending on what type of work you're doing in these multi-tenant buildings, or even a single family house. I guess, I'm not, seems like a very vague. I'm not sure I'm
Just
addressing this.
and that's totally fine. It was a vague question.
Online, always research stuff.
Yeah, and YouTube has good videos also on DIY projects. Um, Another question about getting started, but do you have any tips about getting started with a green group? How you can reach out to other residents, especially because COVID, we're getting out of it, but we're still in it. And so, do you have any tips on how people can get things started?
Um, Again, I think it's just trying to like talk to people. I think from my perspective, I think when you're, when you become too pushy about things, I think people start to step back. But I think, being persistent about it, like, bringing it up every so often, like if it's a board meeting and it's something that you're feel is very important, then I think you stick with it, present the value in it. So, some of these sustainable initiatives are energy savings. So there's value in that. Sometimes they're like indoor air quality. I mean, if you read why you wouldn't want to use, paints with VOCs, like I think people would understand that. I think some things can be a kind of a sell. Like I'm sure, depending on how easily it is to recycle in your building or compost in your building, I do think it can be a hard sell because people are busy and maybe don't want to make the extra run down.
Mhm.
But I mean, if you can find one or two, I think it always just starts with a couple, right? And I think it could add on if, people see how easy it is. Maybe.
Yeah, like you said, leading by example, definitely. Well, I'll encourage anybody to add any last minute questions into the Q&A box, or you can put it in the chat since we're wrapping up. Um, Debbie, if you want to just do kind of a concluding statement, that would be wonderful. If a question pops up within the next 30 seconds, I will interrupt you to ask it, but otherwise you can take it away.
Okay. I just think it's great that you guys came out to the webinar. Thank you. And I hope that there's, some things that you can take away from the webinar that you can use and apply at your building or unit. You don't have to do obviously all of them, and not all of them will apply. So I think just making one change until you're made that one change, and you can move on to tackling something else. So I don't think it has to be so overwhelming, because I know I did cover a lot of topics.
No, but you gave people a lot of good places where they could start, which is awesome. Well, thank
Yeah.
you so much, Debbie.
Plus, if you're interested in ideas or connecting.
Yes, wonderful. Thank you all.
No more questions?
We've concluded. Beth likes to keep it on for 5 minutes afterwards in case somebody has a question in the chat, but otherwise, yes, this is officially concluded. We can stop the recording.